Hey, everybody. For everybody just signing on, if you don't know, I'm not Tanya. I'm just filling in for her today. And she's actually at a training class, getting more knowledge to bring back to all of us. But she has lined up today with us Vlad Kats. For anybody that doesn't know Vlad, Vlad is just a powerhouse. He's been doing this. Vlad, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, and because you've been doing a ton up there.
Yeah, I've been blessed, Chris. I've been in real estate for about 20 years, in any type of capacity that you can think of, from an investor to someone who works with investors to a solo agent, built a small team here in Baltimore, then started a couple of brokerages with Keller Williams system, and owned an expansion network where we were doing 100 transactions a month type of thing, a brokerage where we're doing about 3,000 transactions a year. The reason I share this with you guys is certainly not to impress you, because like if I did it, trust me, anybody can do it. Okay. The reason I'm sharing this with you, and the reason I like sharing this, is because when I think about the real estate sales industry, there isn't a job that I have not done personally. And so that gives me an interesting perspective, especially when I'm talking to real estate professionals like you guys. So I can literally put myself in your shoes. Oh, maybe not literally, metaphorically, put myself in your shoes and know what it's like, regardless of where you are in your real estate career.
Okay, very cool. So 20 years, Vlad, still doing it. You're still doing a great job out there. Mm-hmm. And everybody here knows that the market's been changing, and that's why Vlad's on here today. And we're going to talk a little bit about going into this new market, because we have a lot of agents that haven't seen a market like this. And not only haven't they seen it, but this happened really fast. People are still in the mindset from what it was 6 months or a year ago. So that's the biggest part, is the transition right now. It's happening so fast, people can't keep up with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and look, it happened, almost 20 years ago. Then it happened again 15 years ago during the great financial crisis. It also happened at the end of 2020. If those of you who were around in 2020 with your real estate licenses and your sales careers, you remember going from, the 3 or whatever months of that pandemic stop, a halt, right, a screeching halt, to, oh crap, interest rates are 1% or whatever they were, everybody's buying a house. And then it was like, oh, how do you deal with 50 offers on the same property? Look, it was interesting because I'm more in an advisory role these days, but I was people were coming to me with the following problems. One person would come with, somebody who specializes in listings would come with what processes and systems do I need to process 50 offers? So Chris, you know what that's like, right? Listing a house 18 months ago and getting 50 contracts or 30 contracts, right? And then on the same day, somebody's coming to me is like, I'm competing with 50 other buyers because they're on the buy side. So look, shifts happen all the time. And that's one of the things that I want to make sure that you get, that today's shift, the only thing that's different about this shift is that it's a different shift. But shifts happen all the time. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. I mean, absolutely. The market's going to keep changing.
Exactly. And so we as real estate professionals, and by the way, this transcends, in my opinion, this transcends just real estate. This is life. Crap is happening all the time. Yes or yes?
Absolutely. The only thing inevitable is change.
There you go.
So it's going to happen.
But hold on, Chris. One very important is for us not to label it whether it's good change or bad change. Okay, it's just change.
Right.
And because what that label then creates a whole world for us, and that's one of the things I teach people who are with us is Like, look, it's like Chris said, it's like change is happening. Now, the most important thing is what actions are you going to take? Because the market of 2020 and 2021 required different actions and different skill set. Notice how skills are related to actions. Yes,
Absolutely.
I'm not talking right like than today. Like today's market requires a different set of skills and a different set of actions. And they may not even be that different. And I'm sure we'll get into those as well. And Chris, one more thing. I see, some familiar faces, some unfamiliar faces here. Is it all right if somebody wants to interrupt me or interrupt you, for them just to raise their hand or to go off mute and just say, hey Vlad, what do you mean by this? Or hey Chris, what do you mean by this? Is that cool?
Absolutely. Let's make this interactive because we have different people from around the country in different areas, but we're all dealing with shifting markets in all of our areas, and we're all experiencing the same problems, right? It's the same thing. We all have the higher interest rates. We're all getting those objections. So let's make this interactive. That being said, if anybody has anything, feel free to, raise your hand, come off mute and say something.
Amen.
Sound good? So Vlad, now what are you recommending because we have varying different levels of agents, as far as agents on here that have been in business for a while, some newer agents. What are you advising our agents to do to get ready for whatever comes next?
Perfect. Yeah. So when Tanya asked me, like, what do you want to call this session? What I said is, preparing for the market of tomorrow, right? Because the market is always we're always dealing in the tomorrow, even though we live in today.
Right.
So the first place that I recommend starting is to understanding the actual shift, okay, and what has happened contextually, okay, because how many of you are on the West Coast? Show of hands if you're off camera. Okay, so about half. Okay, if you're off camera, you can raise your okay, I see share. There we go. How many of you are East Coast? Okay, good. Not good, but you get what I'm saying. And then I see Minnesota's joining us. So there we have some folks from the middle of the country or Midwest. Anybody in Texas? Okay, Afshin, you're in Texas. Am I pronouncing that correctly? And Elizabeth? Yes, okay, thank you. All right, so we're from all over the country, right? And like Chris said, there are different things kind of happening, okay? But where I want to begin with is what has contextually changed, okay? And here's kind of like when we had that get together in Baltimore, Chris, I know a few other folks were there. Here's what came out of my mouth that kind of has stuck. And that is, we as real estate professionals went from behaving like bartenders at a late night rave, okay? And now we have to become doctors in the emergency room.
Yeah.
Okay, some are laughing, some are not. I'm good with either. I hope I didn't offend anybody. And if I did, blame it on Tanya and Chris. Okay. So look, before this, probably before Q2 of this year, when the interest rates started spiking, right? It was like everybody was buying houses. In fact, you probably had clients, if you were in business long enough, they're like, oh, we bought a house. My sister wants to buy a house. Oh, my sister wants to sell a house. You know what? We'll sell our house too. It's kind of like, it was a party. Okay. Now, I'm not saying it was easy. Okay. I'm not saying it. I'm not even saying it was fun, because you were not in the rave. You were bartending. You were working. Okay. At a rave, but you were serving drinks as fast as you could. Okay. And sometimes you got paid. Sometimes you didn't get paid. What's happening today is the mentality, and this is very important. The mentality of the consumer has changed. How many of you see that?
Absolutely.
It's okay. They are no longer going to the rave. They're no longer ordering drinks. Okay. So their mentality has changed. See, we as real estate professionals, we like to complain about the market. Okay. Oh, this is, by the way, as human beings, we like to complain about everything pretty much, whether it's inside of our head, whether it's outside of our mouth, but that's a different conversation. Okay. Right. It's the consumer. And by the way, we do that regardless of the market. The consumers, remember, the reason consumers hire us is to solve a problem. At the crux of a real estate transaction is a solution to a problem. Now, who can give me an example of the problem that the consumer is asking you to solve? Not all at once.
Anyone?
No, we're going to give them a chance, Chris.
Okay.
We're going to give them a chance. I believe in you. What is the problem? Like your last check that you received, what problem did you solve? Go ahead, Matt.
Vlad?
Yeah.
Vlad, one of them is that they needed to move a home, but they couldn't just get mass exposure on their own end. They
There you
needed
go.
help getting out.
Matt, that's like, by the way, that's a simple, like, I'm not asking you any trick questions. Okay. They had a problem. They needed to move. Now, I understand that when somebody calls you, okay, and I'll get to the point that I'm making. I get that when somebody calls you, Jason, okay, and says, look, I need help with blah, 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 you're not thinking, oh, what is the problem that they have? But yet, are they calling you, asking you for help? What does that imply?
That they want something.
Yeah, that they have a problem and they want you to help them freaking solve it. Yes or yes?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Now, so if you look at the real estate business with that type of simplicity, okay, with that type of simplicity, that at the end of the day, people are hiring you to solve a problem. Has anything changed?
Not at all.
No. You know, maybe the problem has changed. The way you solve it has changed, but at the crux of it, it's still the same business. So it's kind of like, you know, Texas is Texas, regardless of whether it's raining or not.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, why is this important? The reason, in my opinion, this is important is once you get that at the end of the day, the reason you get paid, or by the way, the reason you don't get paid, because there are different levels here of production, right? Is the only question is, did you solve a problem? Or did you find a person who has a problem that you could solve for? That's the simplicity of this business, regardless of what's going on outside. Now, you know, when you hear, and you know, and I'll pause for a second to breathe and to, you know, to allow Chris or whoever else to say or ask some, is it's hard to, in my opinion, it's hard to come to a conversation about the market, about talking about actual market statistics. Okay. Now, I'm not going to do that because there's people from all over the country. If we were all in Baltimore, I could whip out stuff, even though I have statistics for the remainder of the country. Okay. I understand what's going on, and there's a difference between Phoenix and Atlanta and Baltimore and Florida. I get all that, right? But here is what's important about any statistic that you see, okay? And I'm going to give you the statistic that's most important, okay? The number of transactions is declining. I don't want to talk about prices. That doesn't really matter. You get paid per transaction, i.e. per each problem you solve. Do you see that? Tracy, do you see that? Okay, Minnesota, do you see that? Yes? Okay, good. Like, you get paid on transactional basis, even though this is not really a transactional business, okay? But you get paid per transaction. Now, the check varies with the size of the problem, but the size of the problem doesn't really matter if there is no problem. Do you see that? We start with solving a problem, then the size of it determines how much you get paid. Clear? So here is the only statistics you need to worry about. The number of transactions is going down, okay? Which, if we relay it to what I just said earlier about you being problem solvers, that means that there is going to be fewer people who need your solution. That's it. And that, by the way, doesn't matter what state you're in. Okay. Now, notice how I did not say that nobody's going to need the solution. I only said the transactions are going to go down. Okay. And by the way, we just came from the 2021 was the highest number of houses ever exchanging hands in the United States. Like, it was crazy. Okay. So a smaller number from that number is still a very large number. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
It's still a very large number. So there's going to be millions and millions and millions of Americans, probably closer to about 10 million Americans, who will have a problem.
Yeah.
The question becomes is whether you, remember, you're now no longer a bartender. When you're, have any of you ever worked as a bartender? Tracy, Tracy, I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask you a silly question, okay? Because I'm a silly guy, and today is a voting day, so it's there's silliness happening, although very important. So please vote if you have not. Okay, and you were like a bartender behind the bar.
Yeah, I mean, I did it more for a catering service, so it wasn't, but
Great, but you actually bartended behind the bar. Sometimes
I have, yes.
Okay, great. So here's a silly question. When you were bartender behind the bar, okay, did you, like, who was asking whom for help? Were people asking you for drinks, or were you asking people? Like, I know it's kind of a silly question, but what happened more?
They asked me.
Yeah, that's what typically, like, when I go to a bar, right? Like, I'm like, hey, Tracy, can I get a Manhattan? Okay. It's not like bartenders typically don't do selling, if you will, right? It's not like, oh, you know what? And I'm at the bar and Tracy's like, what can I get you? I'm like, oh, no. And Tracy's like, oh, you should really try the Manhattan. I'm like, I know I'm being silly, right? But it's like, as a bartender, people are coming to you and they're, no, you're now doctors in the emergency room. The only difference there, right, is you want to get the people to come into your emergency room. That's where the difference comes in. All right, I'll stop there. There's a lot of analogies flying around. I just want to pause. Questions, comments, concerns?
Absolutely. I mean, Vlad, you got some great points there, and it really is. I think a lot of us tend to overthink what's going on out there. There's a lot of different places where we can solve those problems, and if we look at what the general consensus is, we can start to drill in on those problems, so we have those answers ready for them.
Ah, there you go. And it's like, when in times like these, your ability to solve a problem is going to create a lot more opportunities. Now, why do I say that? If we take kind of like the bartender analogy, you come in, you get a drink, okay, nice drink, but you don't really remember the bartender necessarily. Okay, you're like, it could have been Tracy, but it could have been Jason serving the Manhattan. Okay, I'm sure, Tracy, I'm sure you make a better one. Okay. But I'm just saying, right? However, think about now. So it was a lot more transactional in 2021. It was just like, get it done. Today, when you solve a problem in selling a house in a 7% interest rate environment, okay, you become a lot more memorable to the consumer. Wouldn't you agree? You get to, like, it's a problem that you're actually like, oh my God, I cannot believe Doug did that. Like, I thought we were going to be on the market for 180 days. He did it in 32, and we got 98% of what we were asking. Holy moly. That type of a problem, right? Then they go and tell everybody about you. So there is, even though it's going to get different, notice not difficult, because it was already difficult. Okay, it's challenging. It makes sense. I mean, it's a business. It should be challenging. Okay, it's not grade school. Okay, as transactions go down, your value as a problem solver actually goes up. Okay, now, how do we take that to make you more money? I'm assuming that all of you want to make more money, regardless of how much money you're making. Yes, any of you? Let me ask. Process of elimination. Raise your hand if you want to make less money. Okay, good. Talking to the right people. Talking to the right people. I see Doug and Barb laughing there. I like it. Okay, good. Good. So look, how do we now take that and actually make more money? Okay, well, now that you know the consumers are thinking differently, okay, you actually have to talk to them differently. Okay, so look, would you agree that bartender talks to his or her clients differently than an emergency room doctor talks to his or her patients? Okay, what do you think the difference is? No wrong answers, just like, spit it out. I don't have answers, but I have questions sometimes.
I would say the doctor is more technical, more fact-based. The bartender is, much more easygoing, kind of.
Yeah, trying to be friendly, maybe even something like, yeah, okay, good. I mean, by the way, that's perfect. Anyone else? Like, again, no right or wrong answers. That was a really good distinction. Good, really, contrast.
Hello. I don't have my camera on right now.
That's
I'm
fine,
going to muted a group. Hi.
Hey.
I did want to say, I think, there's a level to the bartender. I feel like almost as a real estate agent, you kind of got to be somewhere in the middle. You have to have the technical knowledge, but you have to have that sociability to be remembered and to, connect with the person beyond the technical. Because once you get into technical, people don't really necessarily want to hear it. They need both parts of that.
Good. Yeah, by the way, there's nobody here that will disagree that you need both. Okay, but Kylie, let me ask you this: in the market like today, if you take on the analogy that we're now doctors in the emergency room, what is more important, the technical or the friendliness? I'm not saying that one is not important, just 1, 2, rate them.
Yeah, definitely. I get that. I would say that you need to be remembered, like you were saying. You need to be able to be remembered above or beyond everybody else.
And you have to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the clients have to understand that you are solving a problem. See, when a patient walks into the emergency room, those of you who've ever had to do that, like myself, right? Look, I want bedside manners, but what I want more is medical knowledge and opinion. Okay, I want to be treated like a human. I want to be treated not like a number on the bed. I want to be treated great, and I want to make sure my problem is solved. Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay. So like this is really great. This like, because I can see, those of you who I can see, I know you're thinking, right? And like what Kylie and Tracy just presented, like those are the differences, right? And It doesn't mean that you go all in and you become a number-driven a-hole. You can't do that anyways, because you're not a-holes, okay? And you cannot just make it about relationships unless you don't agree that you're solving a problem. See, if you're like, I don't think my clients have a problem, this conversation is, it's outside of that framework. See, I believe that in the market like today, which is very similar to what we experienced in 2008, 9, 10, 11, okay, is that clients now are starting to understand that they have a problem. Because they can't just put the house on the market and then somebody buys it. In fact, 50 people want to buy it tomorrow for 20% more than they listed it. Okay. Same thing with buyers. Okay. They have a problem, 7% interest rate. But they still want to move, like Matt was saying, like that's a problem. They need to get out of their mother-in-law's basement. That's a problem. Go ahead, Minnesota.
Greetings, fellow warrior.
Greetings.
Can somebody or you, Vlad, give us an example of a script with a seller back in June of 2021 and a seller today? What has changed? Give us an example of maybe 2 sentences that you were using last year versus how those sentences are changing today.
I'll go first, but I'm not gonna give you a script, only because I'm personally, and this is totally my opinion, guys, I'm not a big believer in scripts without the intention. Okay, because the way that I would say something may not be the same way that Jamie will say something, or Kylie will say something, or Barb will say something, okay? But if I share the intention, okay, with some words, then you're more likely to use then your own words to relay the intention. Am I clear on that? I just wanna, okay. Afshin, thank you. Okay, Matt, okay, good. Okay, thank you, Kylie. So look, a year ago, the intention was what with sellers? And let's go buyers and sellers, because I think it's a really great question. Okay, but when you met with a seller a year ago, what was the intention? Like, what did you want the seller to understand?
I'd say a year ago, it was about understanding that we were going to price it to drive those multiple offers to get the momentum to get those competing offers to get the highest possible dollar coming in.
Yeah, like, how do we create a manageable auction to get you the most money and the best terms? Really good. Okay, anybody want to add to that or disagree with that or whatever? Like, seller a year ago was just like, okay, Chris, I need to move from Maryland to Florida. How much do you think we can get? Chris is like, look, the range is going to be between 500 and 600. Let's price it at 530. Okay. And, hopefully get it to 575. And then sometimes you're surprised that it's at 590. Sometimes it goes to 610. Sometimes it's at 550, whatever. Right. And then you just negotiate the terms, and I don't want to simplify it, but that's kind of the intention, is that managed auction experience, right? Okay. All right, how about today? So what's the intention today with a seller? 7% interest rate, transactions are dropping.
Well, I mean, again, you got to find out what the seller's looking for, and exactly what the individual market is. We just went into one yesterday. 11-acre piece of property, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom house, 696 square feet, listed at $425,000 on the western part of Maryland. I never would have thought. We went into multiple offers last night. It just came on the market. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 700. But it's in a desirable area, even though on Western Maryland. So it all has to do with the local market and, what that individual seller is looking for.
Yeah, so the way that I would summarize what Chris said is now you're actually getting, so there's two things that I heard. One is you're really getting into the motivation of the seller. Okay, by the way, the motivation of the seller is solve a what? Motivation of the seller is equals to their what? I'm reading Matt's lips. He's saying problem.
Problem. Yeah.
Yeah, like every seller is motivated by a problem that they have. They may not phrase it as a problem, but in today's market, you better know what that is. In yesterday's market or in tomorrow's market, you better know what it is. Today's market, you better. In yesterday's market, a year ago, oh, you want to sell your house? Okay. I mean, some of you probably asked why, and like I understand, but it was less important. Today, that problem solving thing, you have to understand the motivation. And the second thing that I heard Chris say is that then you're setting expectations and you're managing expectations. So you probably had a conversation of like, look, if we listed it a year ago, like it would fly off the market. Today, we're not certain. So the first couple of weeks may be a market test. Okay. How much do you have to, what's your mortgage? How much do you have to, what are you thinking? The comps are this, between 600 and 700. I recommend pricing on the lower end. So it's and then seeing what happens over the next week or two. Okay. So that then we can make a decision whether we need to increase or decrease the price. See, the intention today is different than intention yesterday. Okay. Yesterday, you were just taking orders and you were hoping that they would select you as the order taker. You were hoping that, and you were competing with other bartenders. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. And those of you who joined late, it was a funny analogy that we're kind of going with, so there's no disrespect. Okay. About the bartender analogy. You'll have to rewind it and watch it. But today, right, as emergency room doctors, you better inspect that patient really, really well and set expectations for the next month or 2 or 3. It's no longer like, oh yeah, this is going to sell. Oh, I think we should do it for 600. The seller's like, no, I think we can do 650. You're like, sure, 650. I'm being facetious on purpose here to drive the point. Okay. So Doug, I'm going to come back to you. Does that help, that intention shift?
Where I was kind of headed with that is that I was trying to get how the stats come in today versus last year, and what are people recommending? Now you're saying, well, the number is down, the projected number of units sold is down. So how do we relay that and analyze that along with what the seller's problem is? And I'm kind of I kind of know what to say, but because I'm thinking back of 08, 9, 10, 11, 12, yep. And it's like I kind of forgot some of those conversations. I thought we'd never have to have quite as I didn't think I'd have to remember all those conversations from those years because I kind of wanted to forget them. But now that's kind of slowly coming back, not nearly as bad. But that's what I was headed for.
Okay,
how do we incorporate some numbers?
Well, so first of all, I think it's really important to point out is that if you want to talk like a doctor, okay, you have to start incorporating data. Okay, so to Doug's point. So your preparation for the listing appointment or even the buyer, or not even, and the buyer appointment, better have a data analysis component to it, in my opinion. Okay, so and it's specific to local. See, to local market. When I was actively practicing and going on listing appointments, okay, regardless of the market that it was, what my intention was for the seller to pick the price based on the information that I provided and recommended. So what does that look like? Okay, I want to know days on the market, not just number, but whether they're increasing and or decreasing. I want to understand the number of transactions, increasing or decreasing. And then there's other data, right? I want to know the comps. But here's the a very important thing about comparables, okay? That's going to play a big role in market of tomorrow. Most of the comparables that are used are past based. Would you agree? So this is what the neighbor sold 6 months ago. By the way, that's dangerous. And your sale 6 months ago was in a totally different market. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Right? Because remember, if they sold it 6 months ago, that means that they listed it over 7 months ago. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So you see that, right? So this is where it's, in my opinion, it's very important. In preparation, all right, is not just the solds, because they're yesterday or the day before yesterday, but you want to price it for tomorrow. So that means that you want to look at withdrawals, you want to look at expireds, you want to look at actives, and you want to look at pendings. And in today's market, I'm putting more emphasis on the competition, i.e. actives, and maybe even pendings, because they're not even guaranteed to close in today's market. By the way, one of the shifts that happens one of the results that occurs in a shift is, especially like what we have now, fewer transactions, higher interest rate, is the fallout rate goes up. So like some of you have experienced fallout with like, oh my God, we need an extension, but my rate just went from 5 to 6. I can't afford it. Or something like that, right? So you have to like watch out for that. So like even the pending is not a guaranteed sale. All right. So I'm coming to that listing appointment with all of that data. Kind of like a doctor comes into your room and says like, look, Vlad, based on our research, based on the x-ray, it looks like we have this. Okay. Based on the blood analysis, you have this. Based on blah, 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 on your past history, this is what we're recommending. Okay. Now, I still have to give consent as the patient in most times, right? If it's like a normal type of a doctor situation, I have to give consent, or I can disagree, etc. But nevertheless, the doctor is not coming in is like, Vlad, I really like you. I think you should do this. No, they're presenting me with objective data on how to make a decision. Do you see that, Doug? Now, the conversation around it, this is like, to your question with scripts, right, is I always used to present in, like, first fully understand the motivation. Why are they making the move? In today's environment, tomorrow's environment, you only want, in my opinion, and trust me, as somebody who's worked with a lot of unmotivated people in my early days, okay, one of my favorite stories is I drove a buyer around for 18 months, not every day, but probably once every couple of weeks, okay? And then he decided to remodel his house, okay? So, like, trust me, this is like, that was painful, like how many weekends I missed with my family, okay? Not because he was like, I just didn't do a good job in understanding the motivation, okay? So I start with motivation. If I don't see a strong motivation, no deal. It's kind of like standing outside of the emergency room and asking people to walk in. Silly. Hey, Tracy, it looks like, it looks like you need an aspirin. Come into the emergency room. Like, I don't need an aspirin. Like, what are you talking about? Okay. Now, so if you don't understand the client's motivation, why they need to make a move, are they willing to go through 3 months of whatever to make a move, right? Like, are they willing to do things to their house or whatever? Like, I don't know. In today's, I don't know if you want to take a listing, okay? When I started in real estate sales, like a very top producer back then, helped me out big time. I remember being in the class with him, and Aaron said something to the effect of your real estate career will be defined not by the listings you take, but by the listings you don't take. And that was gold. I learned it the hard way because I'm sure that I forgot it until I remembered it. Okay. But I realized that there were times that I took a listing to take a listing, not to help solve a problem. I was solving my own problem, which was not enough money or not enough listings. Does that make sense? Okay. So unless somebody's motivated, whoo, by the way, the same thing goes with your buyers. Today, motivation is even more important. And there's scripts, there's intentions of like how to find the motivation. Okay. We're not going to turn that about that. But I'm just telling you that it's super critical in today's environment, because if you're driving a buyer around and you look at that buyer and you're not convinced that they will buy the house that fits with what they discussed, you shouldn't be driving them around, or you shouldn't be driving with them.
Right. You know, Vlad, to your point though, we talk a lot about listings. It's the same thing with buyers. You got to lay this stuff out and provide that value and solve that problem, because we always concentrate on our listings, you know, because we got a list to last. But with our buyers, they have the same problem. We just have to provide that data when we're getting ready to make those offers.
Yeah. And look, when you provide that data, okay, you already, by the way, this is hypercritical. If you don't know the data, okay, your local market, and don't make it complex, don't make it complicated, don't make it complex. Just few basic points about what's happening in the market. You have to base some opinion. So for example, transactions are going down, prices are flatlining, days on the market are going up from 3 days to 30 days. What does that mean? That's 3 data points. It's blood test, x-ray, and the CAT scan. What does that mean? Take a guess. Not a hard question and not a trick one, certainly. I don't have a, you know.
You have more problems to solve.
You certainly have more problems to solve, and clear. And what does it, like, let's get a little bit more specific, Tracy or anybody else, is like, okay, if I am going on a listing appointment, what is going through my head?
How much more important I am to them as a resource.
It better be, right? Because you're a doctor, okay? And then if they say, so there's those 3 points that I just discussed, days going up, like, you know, transactions go down, prices are flatlining. And look, you're the doctor, so you look at the neighborhood, let's say it's a cookie cutter townhouse neighborhood, okay? Where houses are listed for 300, selling for 300, you know, there's a couple of actives for 295, you know, it's like, and the seller says, I think we should list it for 350. By the way, does that ever happen? So yes, all the time, policy all the time. Yeah, you know what? I feel good today, 350. Okay, you as the doctor, what's your reply to that? At least in your head, like, what are you thinking?
It's not going to sell.
Yeah. And why?
Because it's not priced correctly, and you're going to drive buyers away. And
yeah. So look, if you come in and you ask the seller, okay, how much should we sell this house for? Okay. Or you tell them a number. By the way, this works in any market, okay, especially in today's and tomorrow. You know, if you ask the seller, you're risking that they say 350. Agreed? Okay. If you come in and you say 300, you're risking that they say, you know what, no, thank you, because they're thinking 350, right? Now, if you come in and you say, okay, Mr. Seller, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, look, I'm not here to make the market, but I'm here to help you interpret it. Okay? Because I'm not the buyer, I'm the marketer for your house. Okay? But let's look objectively at what's going on in the market and your neighborhood, okay? Here's your competition. Here's 4 houses, same square footage, okay? One is remodeled, one whatever. Average list price is $296, okay? Here's 3 pendings. Average list price of the 3 pendings is $302, okay? And I want to show you a few houses that sold in the last 30 to 60 days. But before I show it to you, I have to first say that it's thing we all agree that the market is different today than it was 6 months ago. Yes, yes. In fact, look, here's the market. The prices have flattened out. Here's data. Okay, the days on the market have gone up. Here's data, and the number of transactions in your zip code is the lowest that it's been in the last 2 years. Last month, also the data. And by the way, the last few houses sold for $310. Okay, now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what do you think we should list your house for? Do you think that they can say $350? But let's get silly. They had a Manhattan before you got there. And they're like, Tracy, I feel good. Okay. But you know what? I see that. Let's do 350. Look, now what can you say?
If they want to list it at 350?
Yeah, it's, by the way, 9 times out of 10, there's no freaking way you're getting a 350 number. Why is that?
Because the market doesn't bear that number anymore. The buyers aren't willing to pay it.
Sure, but why is 350 not going to come out of their mouth? Because you just presented them with what?
The statistics.
With statistics.
Now they have all the data.
Data. There you go. You just framed the conversation. You just educated your consumer. The same way the doctor educates you on X-ray, on what happens, blah blah blah, all of that medical stuff, okay? That objective data. It's not personal, okay? Like, I'm not saying that your house is not worth 350. The market is. The market is, okay? But let's say Chris thinks that he can get 350. Okay. Now, what I would ask is like, look, Chris, I believe you have a great house. I'm not going to be the one buying it. Do you want to buy it from yourself? But that's just my humor, okay? I'm sure that's going to go over well with some folks, okay? You have to pick your battles. But then I would say it's like, look, I totally understand you want to make as much money as possible. Is that right, Chris? Yeah, of course he's going to say yes. Okay, great. But how did you come up with 350?
Well,
And I
it's
just
what you
listen.
want to get.
And I just listen. I have not heard, by the way, I can't even remember the time that somebody gave me something 20% above the range that I've created for them, that I helped them create. Okay. Now, by the way, you cannot get tricky here and only pick you remember, all of this is public information. Okay. So it's very important that it's like real data that you're presenting, that you are rooted, that you understand the data, okay? You're presenting it, and then you're letting them make a decision. By the way, if Chris is adamant about 350, am I taking that listing? Some of you may. And by the way, 15 years ago, I don't know if I could answer no, I'm not taking that listing. What I know today is absolutely I would not take that listing. Okay. What I also know today is that there is probably at least a 50% chance that I would get that listing 3 to 6 months later.
Right.
Why do you think I say that?
Because they've tried at the higher number, and now all of a sudden the realistic views are kicking in.
Yeah, and they found somebody who still behaved like a bartender.
Yep.
In an emergency room, in a medical office. Okay, and they took the 350. Okay, it didn't sell. Now, by the way, when Chris calls me back, okay, and says like, we should have gone with you, or when I see it withdrawn, and I right away call. I kept in touch. You can't keep in touch, but I kept tabs on all the listings that I didn't. And now I call Chris and I look, I'm really sorry. It looks like it didn't sell. Did something change with your, like the reason you want to know? Just, okay, great. Are you ready to talk about now selling your house, not just listing your house? See, in the market of a year ago, listing equals selling. Agreed? What you're already finding out is that listing in tomorrow's market, listing does not always equal selling.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That a year ago, you could list a dog house and sell it, to 50 people, right? All, oh, we don't have a dog, but we'll buy one because we want that house. Okay. But today, listing doesn't have to be like, you have to price it there. You have to price it right. You have to like, there's a bunch of things that have to be done. Okay. Same thing is with the buyers. I only want to work with motivated ones. I want to understand their motivation, because guess what? Tomorrow interest rate may go up again to 7.5%. I want to know that they have a real problem. They're not just like, oh, you know what? I'm thinking about buying a house. No, I've been living with my mother-in-law for 6 months. One of us has to go, and she told me she's not leaving. Okay. So I am buying a house, Matt. Okay. I don't care what the interest rate is. I'll just buy a smaller house, but I'm getting out of there. Or look, I just got my first job. I'm making more money than ever. Okay. I've always dreamed about owning a home. I will be the first one in my family to own a home. Matt, I need your help to find the best one in today's market, best price, and all that stuff. Okay. Now, very few people communicate that directly and that clearly, maybe. So it's your job. Like, it's actually your first job as a consultant, okay, is to identify what is the problem that they have first. Second step is to figure out whether you are the best person to solve that problem. And by the way, you could find out the problem and find out that you're not the best person. Let me give you an example, okay? Somebody wants, and you're working with an investor, okay? If they have a problem, they want more cash flow, okay? Positive problem, let's just call it, okay? But their mode of operation is, we're going to lowball every single property, okay? So it's listed for 300, we're going to send in 150. It's listed for 500, we're going to send it 250. By the way, it's a viable strategy. When I was an investor, I did that. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. The question is if Afshin, for example, doesn't enjoy working with investors, is not going to build an investor, whatever product, okay, and is concerned about, let's say she's in a small market where every agent knows each other. She may be concerned about the perception of other agents that she's now sending out 50% offers. Do you see that?
Right.
So it's investor has a problem, has a decent solution, 50% discount, no problem there. But you may not be the one who want to solve that problem. Another option is they need to do a short sale, and you're not a short sale person. You may not be the one solving the problem. The reason I'm going this deep into this thing is because first identify the problem, then figure out whether you can solve it. And then if the answer is yes, and problem and yes, now you have the opportunity to solve it. They're going to love you for it. All right.
Yeah, Vlad, absolutely. I mean, this stuff is so huge, and it is definitely the problems. You empower your clients with the knowledge that you have, and help them make that informed decision. So Does anybody have any questions for Vlad? Any problems that you guys are trying to solve out there?
I think we solved them all, Chris.
Well, you know, the thing about it is, Vlad, you know, the problems, it always takes a minute to absorb it all in, because
Yeah.
we're solving all these problems, and sometimes, you know, 20 minutes later, you're thinking about the, you know, oh crap, there's the problem. And we talk about it on our team meetings, that the objections, there's a problem hidden there. We just got to figure out what it is. Sometimes it's just a complaint, but at the end of the day, interest rates, yeah, they're higher. But the biggest, you know, one of the problems that we have right now is that they jumped up so fast that people haven't had a chance to adjust to the new way of thinking. In the past 2 weeks, we've seen a lot more people. They're starting to get their heads wrapped around this. All right.
Yeah.
7% is not the end of the world.
Far from it. And
You know?
then, Chris, I mean, that's beautiful. Like, it's 1,000,000% on the point. But if somebody has a huge problem, again, mother-in-law basement problem, okay, or I want to be the first one in my family to own a house problem, okay, who cares what the interest rate is?
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
It's
Like,
still,
don't get me wrong, I understand that it makes a difference. But if I am buying a house for those, my motivation is that strong, like, do I 7.5, 5? Okay. Yeah, honey, we'll have to pay a little bit more. I understand, but dude, I'm buying, like, or look, you know, there's, you know, people changing jobs all the time, right? You know, there's like, you know, there's Californians moving to Florida, Texas, to Oregon, to everywhere, right? Some are for pleasure, and some is like, my office is relocating. Like, somebody who has to move from LA to Tampa, who cares what the interest rate is?
gotta move.
Oh, you know what? You know, I'm not gonna go work for Tesla because the interest rate is too high. Yeah, I thought that I was gonna get 500 for my house, but I can only get 450. I'm sorry, Elon. Like, seriously? I mean, I know we're laughing about it, but see, if you understand the motivation, you can then figure out what the person is willing to go through in order to achieve their goal. Because that's the problem, is they have a gap from where they are to where they want to go. You, as a business consultant, real estate consultant, however you, real estate doctor, you're helping somebody solve a problem that is actually a huge one. That's why you're getting such huge checks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could talk about these issues all day long, and you know, at the end of the day, we have to solve the problems for our clients, folks, and that's the whole thing. And the more you really listen to their problems and start to find those solutions, the higher you're going to produce, the more units you're going to sell, the higher price you're going to sell, and the more successful you're going to be.
There you go.
So Vlad, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your knowledge today. And
before we close, yes. I get all that. Can we get maybe 2 or 3 ahas or something like that? Just, is that cool? I can stay a minute longer or 2 minutes longer.
I'm good with that.
All right. If I would love to get a couple of ahas. By the way, aha, for those of you who are newer, stands for agents helping agents. Nifty. I learned it a little while ago. So it helps also me to know like what was impactful, and then also it helps solidify the knowledge for.
I see Michelle has her hand up.
Go ahead.
I would say just truly understanding their motivation. That's really, if they're motivated enough, like you said, they're going to sell no matter what. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Michelle. And you know, it's the market then doesn't matter, does it?
Right.
Yeah, you're just, you know, because they have a problem and now they're thinking about that problem. You were there to help them solve it. Thank you, Michelle. All right, I don't know how to pronounce it. Yeah, is it Yahuya? Yahia? Yeah, perfect. That's easier. Thank you.
No problem. No, my aha was the fact that we have to think about it as solving a problem, because you really wonder like what you're providing when you're a real estate agent, and like why it's better for you to be representing them than them just doing it themselves, and getting that knowledge, getting that data, and then understanding like what problem you're going to solve is really important, and like being confident in offering them that service.
Yeah, that's gold. By the way, like if you all take just that thing, like that will help you make tons of money, but more importantly, help a bunch of people. See, in times like these, what Yaya just said is like, the problem is actually bigger. It's actually not surprising that commission rates go up in down markets. Commission rates. So a year ago, it was like, oh, I'll list it for 2%. Can you list it for 1.5? Can you list it for 2.5? Whatever. They're in the market like we had 15 years ago, nobody cared. It was just like solve the problem. I mean, they cared, but it was more important to solve a problem than how much money they were going to save on the commission. And I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, thank you.
Kylie had her hand up. She put it down. Kylie, did you ever?
Yeah, I was actually just pretty much in the same line as Yaya. I'm from Colorado, and what I've been seeing a lot is so much of this confusion around the 7% interest rate. And then even from my standpoint, getting into a conversation with people, honestly feeling like I don't know what to say because, based on their motivation, that 7% could either be a make or break for them. Like you said, Tesla, you're moving for your job, like whatever, 7% is nothing. But, it really is so huge to understand that motivation, and then understanding that you have to put the right data, all the data in front of their face and basically take that role of the doctor and be able to explain what they're seeing so that they're walking the right path and they can see that you put them on the right path. You were the one that did it.
Okay, Chris, you will have to pick up the microphone that Kylie just dropped. I appreciate you all. Kylie, that was beautiful. Thank you all. Look, I'm a text message or an email away. If I can serve you or help with anything, Chris and Tanya have all of my information. You can find me on such unpopular places as Facebook and etc. All right. I appreciate you all. Thank you. And vote. Today's the day.
Yes. Thank you, Vlad. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. And I think it was some great information. And we'll definitely see you guys here real soon.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye, everybody. Bye,
Bye.
Sheen. Bye, Matt.